So they're new together. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, because listening to the presentations that preceded me, I feel a little bit bad because I've never built any. Well, at least where I come from, I've never done any public buildings. I worked with pirates, bankers, entertainers, so maybe I don't fit in. But so let me tell you where I started. I started my career. This is not working. Okay, I started my career in the entertainment industry, building nightclubs and restaurants. Not because I chose to do so, but simply because the place I come from is a bit of a mess. So I started my career in the post-war years. I come from Beirut. Beirut was not really being rebuilt in the absence of the state. It was in the hands of the public sector. So I found refuge in the entertainment industry because they were the only people who trusted me. The first building I built is a nightclub, a subterranean nightclub, probably to this date the most famous work I've ever done. It's located in the Quarantina sector on the site of a former refugee camp which was burnt down to the ground in 1976. It was the site of a massacre, and since then the region has been doomed. So I come about 20 years later, I'm asked, or I choose to build a nightclub on that site. Any reasonable architect would turn away from such a catastrophic proposition, but I did it because this was Beirut. And what you see here in the center with the circle is my intervention. The site is still very scarce to this date, simply because it's doomed and the city kept expanding northbound and it kind of bypassed the quarantine, where there's basically the garbage collecting company, the slaughterhouses, it stinks. So the club I built is subterranean. You don't see it during the day, as during the day the animal goes to sleep, and during the night it wakes up. So it sleeps during the day, it wakes up at night, and I built it with a garbage truck manufacturer because no contractor in the construction industry would build it. It was a temporary building, was supposed to be there for only 5 years, so now it's sleeping during the day, it wakes up at night, and reflects the sounds, but also the warmth through the reflective panels to the outside, and we can make a lot of noise because there's no one around in the quarantine. The place is doomed, nobody wants to live there. Strangely, the building is still alive, so 25 years later it's completely rusted. This is me to the left, to give you an idea of scale. This was it in its original configuration. So I keep going as the entertainment industry was adopting me. The second project is also in a problematic zone, in what was the no man's land separating East from West Beirut. We invest to ruin, we gut it out, and instead of replastering it and turning it into a transvestite, we let it rot, and we kept the temporary beams in the final configuration of the facade with wire mesh, and I call that the poetry of decay. And we replaced the roof, which was gone, by a tube, a cylindrical tube in steel, circular because the roof rotates and flips down to the space below. So to the right it's open, to the left it's closed. And I became not only the entertainment architect, or the bad boy who dances on graves, as they love to call me, but also the convertible architecture, or the convertible roof architect. So this was the main hall. There was one central table in the middle, very uncomfortable for some people. It's at 40 people. It's a very pretentious space. 9 meters in height, 5 meters in width, one single table in the center. If you look very closely at the section, you'll see you'll see the area dedicated to the service, to the waiters. They're prisoners of the tables. They don't share the space you're seated in as a guest. And the waiters walk on a plane that's 40 centimeters lower than the plane you're seated at, so you can always look down at them. And their only escape is a staircase that takes them down to the kitchen, down in the hall where they belong. This is typical of Beirut post-war bourgeois society, living in marvelous denial. And we keep going, more entertainment, so they were asking for more. This is a Japanese sushi bar, a temple for a sushi bar, built thanks to a visionary client who thought we could get this land for cheap. Another problematic site, which is right by the Damascus Road, which split east from West Beirut. The building right next to me was a ruin squatted by refugees living, you can see to the left, living with no handrails, no windows, no running water. They're basically low-wage workers who were working for $150 a month. And here we are building a monument for a sushi bar that was going to serve sushi at $150 a pop. So obviously the restaurant is not above ground, it's below ground. Above ground is a circular reception that takes you in, and once you're below, your only relationship to the outside world is the sky and nothing but the sky, so you can ask God for forgiveness. You come down through this circular room that moves with a hydraulic piston, and in it are two gigantic frames in which we have very sumptuous sofas, and you come down and you land in the middle of the bar. If you're shy, don't go there. So you can comfortably eat your sushi at $150 a pop, in complete denial of what's happening right behind the wall next door. And this was all done with a precision, with a plan that's as precise as a Swiss watch. So you can see here the very lush sofas that take you down with a circular platform room that takes you down to the sushi bar area. This is just like the first two projects I showed you. These were temporary buildings that had lived a limited time span, lifetime, basically tied to a contract on the land. By 2009, we had to be out, so we left. And in the meantime, the area developed. The building next door was taken by a developer and was transformed to an apartment for hip and young and hip kids. And the refugees were gone, but as the refugees had nowhere to go, they came to my bar. So from here to here, and they transformed the elevator to their little living room. And the kids love it. And Grandeur et Décadence, my building rotted. So as much as I was in the complete here and now, affirmative like you cannot do in permanent architecture because these were temporary buildings, I was very, very proud to say that I manipulated, and I could manipulate everything down to the ashtray. They were all instruments working for a narrative, for constructing situations that were very affirmative in the here and now. They didn't care about the long term like architecture does. It turns out it turned against me very violently. But we've also tried to be more serious. This is my attempt at a competition for contemporary art and a modern art museum in Beirut called the BEMA. And I partnered up with an artist, Walid Raad, and we decided that it was too early to build a museum in Beirut because we never agreed on a consensual history, that no institution had the legitimacy to build a museum. Therefore, we would just make a hole, a very, very deep hole, and we would put scaffolding and all sorts of mechanical systems to go down, and in that hole we would dig galleries inside the retaining walls and give these galleries to private collectors. Therefore, the museum would not make acquisitions, would not engage in writing history. We were dismissed because we had at the jury dinosaurs in the likes of Raim Koolhaas and Lord Palumbo, people who do not accept that you negotiate a program. You have to abide by the program. I think architecture is like sex. If you cannot negotiate the act, don't do it. But architects who do competition are just basically like whores who sit in a vitrine and just, like a blonde. If you're a blonde and the competition wants a blonde and you're a very nice blonde, you'll pass. We did more serious stuff. This is typical of catastrophic sites, which are a result of the lack of urban planning in Beirut. A site that has over 400 meters of periphery, of which only 9 meters intersect with public grounds, meaning all the peripheral sites could be built one day and they could stick to the property line and give us a blind wall, turn their back to us. Therefore, it's a catastrophe. And we did a suicidal project, a masochistic project, which is open 100% of the periphery, with over 100 typologies of apartments. It is a suicidal project because it's a monster that basically takes its clothes off and bows down, hoping that the future neighbors will be friendly and won't turn their back. Time will tell us whether I was right or wrong, but I didn't design this building. It was a very systematic section, and it gave way for very interesting typologies. They're the balcony apartments, basically, with bars that surround them. You can eat on the handrail or put your drink and have parties. Beirut is a port city. This building was finished in 2014, facing the port. And back then, I was very proud to say that I acted as sort of a guardian of the port with my 2 cannons aiming towards Mediterranean, and as really as a symbol. It doesn't look good. It's not a cute building. It comes out of bad soil, but it is what it is. And by August 4th, 2020, Beirut had the 3rd biggest blast in the history, urban blast in the history of humankind. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I survived, but my building did not. And the building was completely scraped off. Nothing was left except concrete. And I decided to take on a medical operation whereby we very, very meticulously surveyed every single panel, and according to its size and its state, we plugged in this into a program that basically designed the stitches that would reflect the impact of the blast on every single combination of panels that were cladding the building. They were aluminum cladding panels in that way, so that basically this is the stitching, almost like a surgical operation. And this is done now. It's almost finished. I've never done any institutional work except outside of Lebanon. This is for the TUMO Center for Creative Technologies, which we were given an old theater in Khoury to rehabilitate. We basically added above it and connected it to the park and the public realm around it. So suddenly I become a nice man who does public buildings once I get out of Beirut. It's red because it's very lively. It's made for kids between the age of 12 and 18 in a city that was devastated by an earthquake in 1988 and then the collapse of the Soviet Union. There are no youth in Khoury, so we're trying to revive the city. It turns out it's a very successful operation. The TUMO adventure is very interesting because it took us to a lot of different places. Here in Paris, for instance, this is one of the classrooms where we've designed the apparatuses, the machines on which the kids study. But when class is over, the machines go up to the roof and to the ceiling, so we clear the space for other events that can happen below. And this is fresh out of the oven, in the making. Also for TUMO in Los Angeles, we're supposed to intervene on those 3 very bad, mediocre buildings. So we wrap them up in tensile structure, and we add scaffolding on the lower building, and on top of that, we build the biggest trampoline on earth for the kids to have open air sessions up on the roof. This is now under negotiation with the city to get built, but it will be built as we see it, hopefully. Thank you very much.